Welcome to the August 20, 2019 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. This meeting is now called to order. I have two more commissioners on their way up. Commissioners Noon and Rice will lead us in the Invocation Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Please join me in prayer. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, again, we come to you with very thankful hearts. We're thankful for the freedoms that we have in this nation and the opportunity to live not only in this nation, but this state and this city. We do ask, Lord, that during this meeting, that you give us guidance and direction in everything we do, that it'll be done to honor you. In Christ's name we ask it, amen.
Amen.
Me in honor of the flag, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners. Need a motion for the approval of the minutes from the July 16 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. The motion carries. Thank you. Our order of business tonight for the consent agenda items is as follows. The items on the consent agenda are plats that meet the requirements of the City of Longview subdivision ordinance. These items will be approved with one vote unless any member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, any member of the public, or the applicant would like an item removed from consent and placed on the regular agenda for discussion. We had two consent agenda items, A and B, and the applicant has withdrawn consent agenda item A. So we have one for consideration, Commissioners, and that's consent item B. We'll entertain a motion.
Motion for approval.
Second.
Who was the second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. The motion carries. Thank you. Next to the regular agenda, the purpose of this meeting is to hear all pertinent testimony of those in support of and in opposition to the applications before the board. Tonight is the first of two public hearings required to approve a change in zoning. The board also considers plats. The procedure for public hearing items to be followed will be that the public hearing will be opened and testimony will be heard in the following order. First, the applicant, second, staff, and third, the general public. If you're part of a large group with common interests, we ask that you appoint a spokesperson. When addressing the board, please begin by stating your name and address and try to limit your comments to 5 minutes. When all sides have spoken, the public hearing on the matter will be closed and no further public discussion will be entertained. After each public hearing is closed, the board will vote on the request. Zoning requests and the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation will go forward to the second public hearing, which will be conducted by the City Council on September 12, 2019. Angela, will you describe regular agenda item A for us, please?
Yes, ma'am. A public hearing will be held to consider application HL 19-02 filed by Alan Mcreynolds requesting a local historic landmark designation for a structure known as the Boy Scouts of America Troop 201 cabin located at 1201 East Park Lane.
Thank you, Angela. Is the applicant available? Come to the microphone,
Alan,
please. Give us your name and address and tell us about your project.
I'm Jay Bissell. I am with the Troop 201 Alumni Foundation. As representative of Boy Scout Troop 201 and our Alumni Foundation, we wish to thank the Longview Planning and Zoning Commission for this opportunity to show the benefits of historical preservation of our Scout Hut in Teague Park. In our presentation, Mr. Mcreynolds will chronicle the history of the troop beginning in 1917 and the history of our cabin beginning in 1941. We feel it is important that the history of this troop and the cabin be preserved and recognized with a historical marker. Again, we wish to thank the members of the Longview Planning and Zoning Commission for considering our application. At this time, I'll turn the podium over to Mr. Mcreynolds to provide our presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Bissell.
Good evening. I'm Alan Mcreynolds. I've been retained as a consultant to Troop 201 to assist them with historic designation, the Texas Historical Commission markers that we seek, and also the restoration process, which I have experience doing. Unfortunately, the PowerPoint presentation that I had put together, somehow or another, I didn't get the message that I needed to bring it to the staff, so we're not going to be able to show it tonight, apparently.
It's okay. We've, everything you've provided in the application is in the PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, okay, so could we proceed with
Yes.
this? Okay, so the location. In 1941, the Longview Lions Club approached the city of Longview about erecting a cabin. And the cabin was, in fact, a log cabin that was put together with volunteer labor, and it has been added onto in 1951-52 with an additional section. Here's a plat of the park, and there's a history of the creation of the troop. The troop dates back 102 years. It is disputed to be the oldest troop in the state of Texas. The city of Lockhart also has a troop which contends that it is also 102 years old. So we're one of two. The next group or cadre of troops that are old are maybe 80 years old. So that you can see that the city of Longview has a great history with Boy Scouts and in Longview. So the original cabin, which was built in 1949, was constructed on a dirt floor out of logs, which were remnants of telephone poles probably, and it was altered in 51. The corners of the building had been cut off, so the cross logs no longer exist. And in the 60s, creosote wood was applied batten style, board and batten, to the exterior of it, as well as the 1951 addition. The second photograph is of the original fireplace, which is still intact and still utilized. The interior of the building basically looks the same as it did in 1941 in the original structure. In 51 and 2, another addition was added, the building to the right, and it is of a different construction style. It is pier and beam. It also has a board and batten exterior. You'll notice that sometime in the 60s or 70s, iron bars were added to the windows because Teague Park was a place where there was a lot of theft and a lot of break-ins, and they had a lot of valuable mementos, which we are currently cataloging. It's quite unique to have the banners and the badges and all of the history that exists there. The second photograph shows the time capsule and the flagpole sometime in probably 2000. And this is also a major centerpiece of the Boy Scout troop. We're utilizing a history put together by Paul Yater, which was completed in 2002. It has a lot of photographs and a lot of written narrative and testimony, and inclusive in that is a list of all of the troop members, which Ken Rainey, thankfully, thank you, Ken, and others took the time to go through this extensive list and list the significance of each of these fairly significant people, including B.W. Crane and Governor Abbott and, of course, Ken Rainey and David Bradman and some of the other fellows that are here with me tonight. But you can see I've highlighted a few names, but if you go through the list from 1917 on, there's name after name after name. There's city streets named after them, mayors, city council members, prominent community leaders, business owners. It's quite an illustrious group. And the attached list, which we gave to the staff at the Preservation Committee meeting, illustrates their significance in the community. So a couple of years ago, the group of men, most of whom are here tonight, created a foundation. They wanted the troop and the cabin to have perpetual care and maintenance and be continued. Last year, there was a reorganization. The Lions Club wanted to back out of continuing to have the lease with the City of Longview and the Park Department. So Trinity Episcopal Church stepped forward, which is sort of how I got involved. And so now the lease agreement is with the Foundation, and Trinity Episcopal, and now there are 3 troops. There are 2 male troops, there's Troop 201, and then an all-girls troop. Did you know that there were now all girls in Boy Scouts? How about that? So we're very happy that there is life being continued to pump into the cabin, and it's being utilized, and there are troop leaders who are meeting with us even tomorrow night to discuss when we can begin some minor restoration and renovations so that we don't interrupt the troops' activities there in the cabin. So the history is quite unique in that it was built with volunteer labor by the Lions Club and donated to the city and the Boy Scouts, and we have a close relationship with the city through the lease agreement, which has now been reorganized and now is with Trinity Episcopal Church. So this group of gentlemen came to me and asked me to assist them in doing a number of things. One was to help walk them through a renovation and restoration and preservation process. And we're aware that the exterior of the building will be closely eyed by the staff, and we want to work closely with them to make sure that we are utilizing not only current best practices, but keeping the cabin looking the same. So the exterior windows, which I'm sorry I'm not able to show you my new slideshow, I took photographs of each of those. Many of them are boarded up. Others are single pane, double hung, so there's just 2 big pieces of glass. And then in others, there's 6 over 6. So every window is different because it was donated material. So we've got a little bit of a problem in some of the things that we want to do, because we'd like to air condition and insulate the interior because it is so hot in there right now. The windows, many of them don't open, and just a door or 2 being open in this heat means that the scouts can't be there, and certainly we're not enjoying meeting there on Wednesday evenings either in this heat. So we want to air condition it. We want to insulate the interior. We want to repair / replace, upgrade the windows, but they must be historically accurate and look the same. We understand that. The staff has expressed some concern about the way that the burglar bars look, and we appreciate that, and we're going to be working on some ideas on how we might be able to remove those, because we realize they're not historically accurate nor attractive, but we need to have security. We also want to replace the roof. It's time to put on a new roof, and we'd re-roof the entire structure. But the original section, 1941, had a pine log sliced roof, which is no longer fire resistant and up to code, but it is hard to replicate. So we're going to be looking at shingles that replicate a shingle look, but they'll be architectural shingles that are a composite composition. In addition to the 2 structures, 41 and 51-52, there's also a shed on the rear, which is photographed here, and this is the service drive that goes along the side of the building. This is utilized for boat storage and also a camper inside. It is a pole barn, if you know what that is. It's not insulated. It has a dirt floor. It is just a metal corrugated roof that sits on top of poles that are buried in the ground. And we have sliding doors. There's a garage door on each end so that we can pull a trailer through. And we'd like to replace it, and we'd like to upgrade it because we want it to be secure and insulated, but we need to have a place to store the boat and the camper and the other camping materials. So we'll be working again with the staff carefully to make sure that what we do works with keeping it historically accurate. The Foundation's desire would be to take that addition off because it's not original to either 41 or 52. We think it was built in the late 60s. To remove it and build a shed away, which would be more accessible. But again, we need to work carefully with the staff and with the Historic Preservation Group to make sure that we are doing exactly what makes sense in terms of restoration, preservation, and renovation. The 2 buildings, because they were built at different times, have different framing structures. The log cabin is 1 room, except it has a bathroom, which is not ADA, and it has a broken out window and no ventilation, and again, no air conditioning. So we'd like to make it ADA appropriate. There's an office with a big sink and a desk and a computer, and we'd like to make that more into a usable space. That's in the 1941 building. The rest of the 1941 building is just a big open room with beams. We'd like to blow in insulation on the interior, add air conditioning ducts, and again, replace the windows, but make it more usable throughout the year and more comfortable for everyone. The 5152 structure has beam ceilings. It has a drop ceiling where we can hide the air conditioning vents and the insulation, so the visibility of that is not quite so much of a concern of ours on the interior. And perhaps the interior is not an issue with you all today because the city ordinance really speaks to the exterior, but I want to tell you about the kinds of things that we're facing. So in addition to the shed being added on, they boarded up 2 windows that would face out into the shed. So if we took the shed off, we'd like to expose those windows, bringing more light in and making the larger committee room more light and usable. Because right now we have neon bulb strips for lighting, and it's kind of glaring and not really up to the standards of the day. Next slide, please. So this is another exterior shot of showing the original building here, and then the addition. You can see that there are 2 entrances. Both doors are easy to break in. So we're using a bar system, and it's really it's something that you don't see very much anymore in an urban setting like this, but the park is remote, and we're just concerned about security. So again, we're going to be looking at new doors, historically accurate, which replicate the look and feel of what was there originally, but we want them to make them safe and secure so that we can have deadbolts and maybe an alarm system. Who knows how far we're going to go with that. But we certainly want to use modern materials, but make sure that they look the same as what was there. Now, while we're on this photograph, I want to point out that if you'll notice the left building, it is board and batten, which is creosote. And I've spoken to Jay Garland about, because the Garland family donated these originally back in the 60s when this was put on. And he's advised me that that's not environmentally correct anymore. So I was assuming it wasn't, but he said, Alan, let's try something else. So we've been talking to Satterwhite Log Homes and others about working with us to come up with a design that would replicate the different look, because notice each building, though they're board and batten, have a different look. And the staff has been very helpful in pointing out that while we're renovating, we want to keep the same look. So we will be working on that. In the 60s, when the board and batten was put on the 1941 building, which is the left structure, the lower 3 or 4 logs were removed, and concrete was put in and covered with batten boards. So on the interior, you can see it. On the exterior, you don't see it. But as soon as we take this batten board fascia off, you're going to see that it's no longer an intact log building. And that's one of the issues that we have in terms of taking it back to 1941. So we're hoping that the staff and the historic preservation groups will work with us to come up with acceptable recommendations where we can get a certificate of appropriateness for what we're doing. So again, the main things that we're going to be looking at on the exterior are new roof, new windows, or at least repairing and caulking and trying to make them as insulated and secure as possible. New doors for the door here by the 1951-52 addition, which is that porch. There's a door there, and then one which is right over, thank you, and then there's one right there in the shadow that you can't see very well. And those are the only 2 openings, ingress, egress, to the building. Next slide, please. So again, the shed. This is a sliding door. You can see again, one of the windows is boarded up. That's I believe that's the troop leader's office, if I'm not mistaken. And there's a long hallway in the middle of the new addition. And on either side, as you go down this hallway, are troop meeting rooms and offices. So one's a storeroom and one's a troop leader's room, and then there are 2 meeting rooms that the troops utilize. So the windows are boarded up into the shed, so we'd like, again, permission to remove that. And we realize that we need to come forward with every single incremental piece, and that we need to ask for certificate of appropriateness for everything we wish to do. But tonight we're asking you to allow us to take this forward so that we can begin working with the staff and the historic preservation groups to come up with a restoration plan that's acceptable, because we want this structure to be fireproof, safe, and here for many more years. 1941 is not quite so old to many of us, but in the city of Longview, that's pretty old. Next slide, please. We've completed an application. I'm acting as their agent because I've done many of projects of historic preservation. The plat shows who the owners are and such, and again, one of the unique things about this property is that it's surrounded by historic sites. The city of Ertville marker is just a stone's throw away on Highway 80. The Teague House, which is considered by many to be the oldest structure within the city limits, is right next door, right across the pasture. And the Teague family cemetery is also there. And there are 2 grave sites outside of the cemetery, which is right up here on the hilltop under the trees. There are 2 graves there, the Richardson family, which date back to the 1850s, so which predate the Teagues. We're not quite sure. Perhaps maybe they owned the land before the Teagues did. This is a really important space, and the city and other volunteers have worked diligently with the Veterans of Foreign Wars to create these amazing markers for all the war veterans, and it's quite a remarkable place now. It's not the park that it was when I was a child growing up here. It is quite a different place, and so we would like permission to work with donors and the community to restore and upgrade and preserve this structure. So with your permission, I'll take questions.
Any questions of Mr. Mcreynolds?
Are they going to come back and put the corners on the building?
Mr. Satterwhite has advised us that that's not possible, sir. That was one of the things that we would like to consider, but we really don't know until we take the board and batten off, and we don't want to do that until we've completed this process of getting landmark status, because we wouldn't want you to think that we're jumping the gun. We realize that we need to come forward with a certificate of appropriateness for every single thing we do on the exterior, and we intend to do that.
Any additional questions?
Does it have any asbestos?
Not that I've identified. Fellas, is there any asbestos that you're aware of? No? Okay. Many of these gentlemen who are here with me tonight have been active with the troop and this cabin since they were 10 or 12 years old. So they have a history and a knowledge of this building that I don't have. So they've been great advisors to me.
Well, our compliments to the thoroughness of the report. I enjoyed the listing of the membership from the beginning. It's been very educational to me. I enjoyed the entire presentation.
And it has been for me as well. It's been a pleasure to work on this with them.
Any additional questions for Mr. Mcreynolds? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Angela, staff.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting a local landmark, historic landmark designation for a building known as the Boy Scouts of America Troop 201 Cabin, which is located at 1201 East Park Lane. This will be Longview's 8th local landmark if approved. As Mr. Mcreynolds had stated, this property is actually owned by the city of Longview. The Boy Scouts do have a lease for the building and for that property. The Boy Scouts troop was created in 1917 and is one of the oldest Boy Scout troops in Texas. There were many influential members, as Mr. Mcreynolds had stated, including the current governor, Governor Greg Abbott. Local historic landmarks must meet one of the following criteria that is in this historic preservation ordinance. This cabin meets several of those criteria, including possessing significance in respect to history, culture, and social fabric of Longview. The Historic Preservation Commission, along with staff, recommends approval of this request. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Angela, got one question. Before this goes forward, would you kindly fix the spelling of troop? It's misspelled all the way through the city document.
Which,
T-R-O-O-P.
yes, we will fix it. Wherever it is located, we will fix it.
There is no U in troop.
Yeah. Yes, we will fix it.
Troop, Texas.
Any additional questions of staff?
Of course.
Hearing none, thank you, Angela. The public hearing is open for those that would like to come to the microphone and speak in support or in opposition. Would anyone like to do so? Come to the microphone and give us your name and address. Okay. Hearing none and seeing none, the public hearing is closed.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign.
Nope.
The motion carries. That was not a,
Was that a motion against?
No.
Okay. Just double
He was-
checking.
Any opposed? Nope.
no, okay, no opposed. So the motion carries. Thank you and congratulations. Staff update.
All items at the last council meeting were approved by city council.
Thank you. Are there any citizen comments? Hearing none or seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.